The alien fleet descended upon Earth like an unstoppable force, shimmering in the atmosphere with technology far beyond anything humans had ever seen. Alien commanders sat in their hovering crafts, eyes gleaming with arrogance as their soldiers marched onto the surface. They had faced countless species across galaxies, each one weaker than the last, and Earth was no different to them. Their scanners picked up human military resistance, soldiers armed with rifles, helmets strapped tightly, and uniforms stained with the dust of battle. But to the aliens, it was laughable. Primitive projectiles, outdated tactics. They saw no challenge in what lay before them. Communication among the alien troops was full of mockery. One soldier commented how humans were still using tools from the Stone Age, another laughed at the way humans fumbled with their weapons. They had dealt with energy cannons and plasma rifles for centuries, and now they were being asked to take seriously an enemy that fired small, metal bullets. The commanders didn't even issue any special warnings. "Move forward," they barked. "Crush the resistance. Show them the futility of standing against us." Human forces did what they could, setting up defenses and digging trenches, knowing they were severely outgunned. Yet even in this moment of despair, there was no widespread panic. Humans had been in tight spots before, and if history had shown anything, it was that Earth's defenders never gave up easily. The alien soldiers moved in, advancing effortlessly with shields that deflected incoming fire. They walked through human ranks as if they were swatting at flies, blasting their way through the makeshift fortifications. Victory seemed all but guaranteed. On the alien command ship, the officers watched the ground reports with satisfaction. Every image of human rifles popping off futile rounds was met with smirks. "What a waste of resources," one remarked. They couldn't understand why humans even bothered to resist. They had calculated everything. Earth's cities would fall within days, human leadership would surrender, and their invasion would be marked as one of the quickest victories in the Empire's history. After all, what could mere humans with their outdated rifles do? Amidst the wreckage of an obliterated outpost, an alien patrol began its march toward the mountains. This was the last place they expected trouble. The terrain was too rugged, too inaccessible for large-scale combat. Still, the patrol had orders to sweep the area, ensuring no humans had escaped to the higher ground. As they made their way up the jagged slopes, their laughter echoed through the rocks. It was a formality, nothing more, a task handed down because no one believed humans could muster any meaningful resistance in such a place. They expected the day's mission to be over soon and to report another easy success. What the aliens failed to consider, what never crossed their minds, was the adaptability of the humans. While alien tech surpassed human capabilities in nearly every way, there was one thing they had yet to experience: the patience, the precision, and the cunning of a human sniper hidden high in the mountains, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. For now, though, the aliens remained blissfully unaware. They were invincible, or so they thought, their armor impervious to what they believed was an outdated, laughable form of warfare. Their commanders had already moved on mentally, discussing how to handle the inevitable political takeover once the military objectives were complete. They underestimated their enemy, just like they had underestimated so many before them. To them, Earth's humans were just another species that needed conquering, and their laughable rifles were only a sign of how backwards this planet really was. What they didn't know, what they couldn't understand, was that human resistance had only just begun. Up in the mountains, the sniper lay still, eyes focused through the scope. The cold air bit at his skin, but he didn't flinch. He had been trained for moments like this, alone, hidden, waiting for the right target to reveal itself. The terrain was harsh, unforgiving, but it was home to him. The craggy rocks, the thin air, the silence, they were all part of his element, tools to be used just like the rifle in his hands. He had seen the aliens from afar, watched them march with that same arrogance he had seen in other enemies. They carried themselves like they had already won, as if human resistance was nothing more than a nuisance to be brushed aside. But they had never faced someone like him. His rifle, though old by modern standards, was an extension of his body. It had been meticulously cared for, cleaned, and fine-tuned after each battle. It wasn't just a weapon, it was the means by which he would level the playing field. From his vantage point, he could see the alien patrol moving through the rocks below. They were sloppy in their advance, trusting too much in their technology. They didn't bother scanning the higher ground properly, didn't consider that a single human could be lying in wait. The sniper smirked to himself. He had faced enemies before who thought their numbers or their gadgets could save them, but they had all fallen to a well-placed bullet when it mattered. The wind was light today, just enough to carry sound but not enough to throw off his shot. The sniper adjusted his scope, tracking the lead alien in the group. They moved in formation, like they had rehearsed this 100 times over. But that was the difference between them and him. This wasn't a rehearsal for him. This was life or death, and he had spent years perfecting his ability to outlast and outthink his enemies. Every movement, every breath, was calculated. His heart rate slowed as he lined up the shot. He could hear them laughing now, their voices carried up by the wind. They mocked the terrain, the planet, the humans they had already defeated. Their overconfidence was palpable, almost suffocating in its ignorance. But that would change soon enough. The sniper's finger gently pressed the trigger, the rifle gave a soft crack, and the first alien fell before they even heard the shot. The group stopped, confused, their laughter abruptly cut short. They scanned their surroundings, unsure of what had just happened. The sniper didn't move, didn't celebrate the success of his shot. This wasn't the time for self-congratulation. There were more targets, and they would soon realize they weren't alone. He reloaded calmly, lining up the next shot as the aliens began shouting commands at each other. They weren't used to this kind of warfare, one where they couldn't rely on their superior numbers and firepower to overwhelm their enemies. They were used to facing opponents who panicked, who ran at the sight of their ships or the sound of their weapons. But this sniper wasn't running. He wasn't panicking. He was biding his time, waiting for them to make their next mistake. A second shot rang out, dropping another alien to the ground. Panic began to spread through their ranks. They fired wildly in all directions, desperate to hit something, anything. Their technology, so advanced and yet so useless in this moment, couldn't help them find the sniper. The mountains echoed with their confusion, their fear growing with each passing moment as they realized they were being hunted. The sniper moved carefully to a new position, taking advantage of the rocks to conceal himself further. He had no intention of staying in one place too long. It was part of the game, always stay one step ahead, never let the enemy close in. The aliens still hadn't pinpointed his location, and by the time they figured out where he was, it would be too late. They sent out drones next, small machines that hovered in the air, scanning the ground for any sign of life. The sniper watched them carefully, knowing their capabilities. He had encountered similar technology before and had learned how to avoid detection. He adjusted his position again, moving deeper into the mountains where the drone's sensors would struggle to pick him up. His movements were deliberate, slow, calculated, every step designed to minimize his exposure. The alien patrol was falling apart now. Their leader barked orders, but the fear in his voice was evident. This wasn't what they had expected. They had been told that humans were easy prey, that their weapons were primitive and ineffective. But here, in these mountains, they were being outmatched by a single man with a rifle. The sniper could see the cracks forming in their unity, the way their formations started to falter. He knew this was his moment. He lined up another shot, his breath steady, his hands still. Another pull of the trigger, another alien dropped to the ground. It was methodical, almost surgical in its precision. He wasn't just fighting an enemy, he was dismantling their confidence, piece by piece. With every alien that fell, the rest grew more uncertain, more desperate. The sniper didn't need to see their faces to know what was happening. He could hear it in their frantic radio chatter, in the way their movements became more erratic. They were losing control of the situation, and they knew it. What had started as a routine patrol had turned into a nightmare, one where their technology couldn't save them, and their numbers meant nothing against the patience of a single human. The aliens were in disarray. Their commander, once so certain of an easy victory, now barked orders with a growing edge of panic in his voice. Their advanced scanners, drones, and sensors had all failed to pinpoint the sniper's exact location, and they were losing soldiers with every passing moment. This was supposed to be a routine sweep, an effortless cleanup operation after their overwhelming initial assault. Instead, they were being hunted by a single human. The sniper had already taken down several of their number, and still, they hadn't even caught a glimpse of him. Alien soldiers crouched behind rocks, eyes wide, scanning the cliffs and ridges for any sign of movement. Their weapons, capable of melting through steel, seemed useless against the precision of the sniper's simple, lethal rifle. The mountains weren't their battlefield anymore. They had lost control of the terrain the moment they stepped into it. The alien commander was furious. He had sent his soldiers into battle with the confidence of someone who believed himself invincible, and now, that certainty was crumbling. He demanded another drone sweep, but the drones were no match for the sniper's cunning. The rocky landscape provided endless places to hide, and the sniper used every one of them to his advantage. The drones buzzed overhead, searching for heat signatures or movement, but the sniper remained a ghost, slipping between vantage points as if he knew the mountains better than the back of his own hand. Every time the aliens tried to regroup, the sniper struck again. They could feel him watching them, though they could never see him. Each shot seemed to come from nowhere, as if the mountains themselves were against them. One by one, the soldiers fell, and the rest grew increasingly frantic. They had never been in a situation like this. Their military training had prepared them for large-scale battles, for dominating the battlefield with sheer firepower and overwhelming numbers. But against this sniper, none of that mattered. The commander tried a different tactic, ordering his soldiers to fan out, to search every nook and cranny of the mountainside. He sent his best trackers, soldiers equipped with enhanced vision and armor that should have made them impervious to the sniper's bullets. But it made no difference. The sniper's patience was unmatched. He waited for them to expose themselves, knowing exactly when and where to strike. One well-placed shot, and the alien trackers crumpled to the ground, their armor failing to protect them from the sniper's perfectly timed attack. The remaining soldiers were losing their nerve. Every move they made felt wrong, every step seemed to bring them closer to the sniper's crosshairs. They had been taught that humans were weak, easily conquered, and yet here they were, being picked off one by a single human soldier with a rifle. Their fear was palpable now, their bravado long gone. The mountains, which had seemed like a minor obstacle, were now a labyrinth of death. As the sniper shifted to a new position, he heard the sounds of the alien soldiers stumbling over the rocks, their heavy footsteps betraying their lack of familiarity with the terrain. They had been trained for open ground, for flat fields where their technology could dominate. But here, in the narrow, rocky paths of the mountain, they were vulnerable. And the sniper knew it. He had chosen this place for a reason. This wasn't just a battle, it was a demonstration of the power of patience, of precision, and of knowing your enemy better than they knew you. The aliens were running out of options. Their advanced equipment was useless, their numbers dwindling, and their morale shattered. The commander, once so sure of his superiority, now struggled to maintain control of his troops. He tried to rally them, urging them to press on, to find the sniper and end this humiliation. But the soldiers were terrified. Every time one of them stepped out from cover, they risked being the sniper's next target. The sniper, for his part, remained calm, methodical. He had been trained to conserve his energy, to make every shot count. He didn't need to rush. The aliens were doing the work for him, falling apart without him needing to expend much effort. He watched as they tried to push forward, only to be met with another precise shot that sent them scrambling back into hiding. It was like watching a pack of predators suddenly realizing they had become prey. The commander's desperation grew. He ordered an all-out push, sending his remaining soldiers forward in a reckless charge, hoping that sheer aggression might succeed where technology had failed. But the sniper was ready. He had planned for this moment. The charge was disorganized, panicked, and it played directly into his hands. As the aliens surged forward, he picked them off one by one, each shot further unraveling their ranks. In the chaos, the alien commander realized that they were losing this battle. Not just physically, but mentally. His soldiers were broken. Their confidence was shattered, their training rendered useless by the sniper's unyielding precision. They had come to Earth expecting to crush a primitive species, and now they were being decimated by a single human, fighting from the shadows. The commander hesitated for a moment, his pride warring with the reality of the situation. But he knew the truth. They had lost. His forces were no match for this sniper, and to continue fighting would only lead to more pointless deaths. With a heavy heart, he gave the order to retreat. The remaining alien soldiers, grateful for the reprieve, scrambled to follow the command, pulling back from the mountains and retreating into the safety of their ships. The sniper watched them go, his rifle still in hand, ready for any last-minute attempts at retaliation. But there were none. The aliens, so confident at the start, now fled with their tails between their legs. And as the last of them disappeared from view, the sniper allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. They had underestimated humanity. They had laughed at Earth's weapons, at its soldiers. But they weren't laughing anymore. The retreat was disorderly, alien soldiers scrambling down the mountains with none of the discipline they had arrived with. Their commander barked orders, but his voice no longer carried the authority it once had. Fear had taken root deep in their minds, and no amount of shouting could erase the memory of their comrades falling one by one, picked off by a ghost they could never see. They had learned a painful truth in these mountains, that no amount of advanced technology could replace the experience and tenacity of a well-prepared enemy. The sniper watched them retreat, his breathing steady. He had not moved from his position for several minutes, allowing the enemy to dig their own graves with their panic. He had faced enemies like this before, those who believed their technology made them invincible. But arrogance was always their undoing. Technology could fail, but patience, knowledge, and skill never did. He remained vigilant, though. Retreats could be feigned, and traps could be set. He wasn't about to let overconfidence become his own downfall. Slowly, he repositioned himself once more, maintaining his height advantage while keeping a sharp eye on the path the aliens were taking. From this new vantage point, he saw the remnants of the alien force clumping together, clearly hoping that the safety of numbers would protect them from his rifle. It wouldn't. His finger hovered over the trigger once more. Another alien moved into view, and the sniper fired, the shot echoing through the mountains. Another soldier fell, and once again, chaos erupted among the retreating forces. They scattered in every direction, breaking formation, no longer listening to the futile commands of their leader. The sniper had taken their confidence, and with it, their ability to think clearly under pressure. As the aliens stumbled over the rocky terrain, the sniper remained methodical. This was no longer just a battle, it was psychological warfare. Every shot he fired now wasn't just to kill but to further break the enemy's morale. The more they feared him, the less capable they became of fighting back. And he had plenty of ammunition left. His plan wasn't just to kill the enemy soldiers but to ensure they would never return to these mountains. They had to leave knowing they could never defeat him here. The alien commander finally gave up trying to control his troops. He realized there was no way to salvage this mission. His forces had been decimated, not by superior numbers or overwhelming firepower, but by a single human sniper who had used their arrogance against them. The commander's mind raced, trying to understand how things had gone so wrong. Their strategy had been flawless, on paper. But paper didn't account for human resilience or ingenuity. They had assumed the battle would be quick, that their superior technology would carry them through. They hadn't planned for an enemy that could adapt so quickly, that could turn their technological advantage into a weakness. With his troops still scattering in all directions, the commander made the call. He activated the retreat beacon, signaling the mothership that the mission was over. Defeat was never an easy thing to admit, especially for a species that had conquered countless planets with ease. But this was different. This planet was different. Earth was full of surprises, and the sniper in the mountains was the most dangerous one they had encountered yet. The beacon sent a signal up to the sky, and in the distance, the low hum of alien ships powering up could be heard. They were coming to evacuate the remaining troops. The sniper noticed the change immediately. His trained ears picked up the sound of the ships long before they came into view. He knew what it meant. The aliens were finally retreating for good. But his mission wasn't over yet. He had one last task to complete. The alien commander had been giving orders from a relatively sheltered position throughout the battle, staying just out of range of the sniper's previous shots. But now, with the retreat in full swing, the commander was exposed. As his soldiers fled, the commander began moving toward the evacuation zone, no longer able to rely on the protection of his troops. The sniper adjusted his scope, lining up the shot. He could end this now, take out the commander and send a message to anyone who dared think of returning to this mountain. The alien commander moved cautiously, clearly aware of the danger, but it was too late for caution. The sniper's finger tightened on the trigger, and the rifle fired one last time. The bullet found its mark. The commander fell, and with him, any hope of a coordinated retreat. The remaining alien soldiers, leaderless and terrified, scrambled into the evacuation ships with no sense of order or strategy. They had come to Earth believing they were superior, that humans were nothing more than a stepping stone on their path to dominance. But now they knew better. They had encountered something they hadn't planned for: human adaptability, human tenacity, and the deadly precision of a sniper who had turned their strength into a weakness. As the alien ships lifted off, retreating into the sky, the sniper remained in his position, watching them go. He didn't celebrate, didn't allow himself any moment of triumph. There was no need. This was just another battle in a long war, and while the aliens had been defeated today, they might come back. But if they did, they would be met with the same resistance, the same unyielding force that had driven them from the mountains. The sound of the alien ships faded into the distance, leaving the mountains quiet once more. The sniper finally allowed himself to relax, lowering his rifle and leaning back against the rocks. He had done his job, and done it well. The mountains were safe, for now. But deep down, he knew this wasn't the last time Earth would face an invasion like this. The galaxy was full of enemies, each one believing they could take what they wanted from humanity. But they all made the same mistake. They all underestimated the resolve of Earth's defenders. Today, the sniper had shown the aliens that no matter how advanced their technology, no matter how superior they believed themselves to be, there was something stronger than their weapons: human will. And so, as the sniper stood up and began his careful descent back into the heart of the mountains, he knew that the next time the aliens, or anyone else, tried to take Earth, they would think twice. Because in these mountains, with a single rifle in hand, a human had proven that they were far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The sniper made his way down the mountain slowly, taking in the quiet that had returned. The echoes of battle had faded, replaced by the natural sounds of the wind rustling through the rocks. It felt like the land itself was breathing again, a calm settling over it after the chaos that had unfolded. But he knew that this silence wasn't permanent. The aliens would remember what had happened here, and it would leave a mark. This defeat wasn't something they could easily forget, and neither could the sniper. As he descended, he thought about the battle, not with pride, but with a careful assessment of what had happened. Each shot, each move had been calculated, but it wasn't just skill that had won the day. The terrain, the preparation, the patience, these were the real weapons he had used. He hadn't outgunned the aliens, he had simply outlasted them. They had come with all their advancements, their superiority complex firmly in place, but they hadn't accounted for the human element. That was their downfall. They thought technology would save them, but they underestimated the power of knowing the land, of understanding how to blend into it and use it to your advantage. He remembered the look on their faces, those few he had seen, moments before they fell. It wasn't just fear, it was disbelief. They couldn't comprehend how they had lost. To them, humans were relics of a less civilized time, a species meant to be conquered and controlled. But humans had been surviving for millennia in conditions far harsher than any they had faced today. The sniper was just another extension of that long history of survival. He wasn't special, not in the grand scheme of things. He was simply doing what humans had always done, adapting, enduring, and overcoming. The sniper's mind wandered back to the alien commander, that final shot. He hadn't taken any pleasure in it, but it had been necessary. Leadership in battle wasn't just about commanding troops, it was about embodying the morale of your forces. The commander had represented everything the aliens believed in: their certainty, their arrogance, their idea that they were untouchable. By taking him down, the sniper had done more than just eliminate a target. He had shattered the last remaining piece of their pride. Without their leader, the alien troops had collapsed into disarray, and that had sealed their fate. As he reached the lower slopes, the sniper paused, looking out over the landscape below. In the distance, faint plumes of smoke marked the places where other battles had been fought. He wasn't the only one out here, not the only human still resisting. There were others like him, scattered across the globe, each doing their part in this war. They weren't all snipers or soldiers. Some fought with words, others with strategies or with their hands, building and rebuilding after every attack. That was the beauty of humanity, its diversity in the face of struggle. Everyone played their part, whether they realized it or not. The sniper knew the aliens would regroup, that they would go back to their commanders, their leaders, and try to explain what had gone wrong. They would analyze every move, every failure, trying to make sense of how a single human had outwitted an entire squad of their best soldiers. They would blame the terrain, the weather, maybe even each other, but they wouldn't truly understand. Because it wasn't just about tactics or equipment. It was about resilience, the refusal to give up even when the odds seemed impossible. That was something the aliens couldn't replicate with all their technology. They would try again. That much was certain. They might come back to this mountain, or maybe they'd try elsewhere. But the sniper knew that wherever they went, they would find the same resistance. Earth wasn't just a place to be taken, it was home to billions of people, each with their own reasons for fighting. And for as long as they underestimated the will of those people, they would continue to fail. The sniper reached a small outcropping and sat down for a moment, resting his rifle across his lap. He wasn't thinking about the next battle, not yet. For now, there was only the quiet, the peace that came after the storm. The war wasn't over, but this fight had been won. And in that victory, there was a lesson for both sides. For the aliens, it was a lesson in humility, in the dangers of arrogance. For the humans, it was a reminder of what they were capable of when they stood together, even if they fought alone. There would be time to prepare for what came next. The sniper knew that his skills would be needed again, that his role in this war wasn't finished. But there was no rush. Battles like these were won by those who knew how to wait, how to strike only when the moment was right. That was the truth the aliens hadn't learned, and it was why they had failed. They moved too quickly, assumed too much, and it had cost them. He glanced up at the sky, where the alien ships had vanished, leaving only faint trails behind. They were gone for now, but their presence still lingered, a reminder that the war was far from over. But the sniper wasn't afraid. He had faced worse odds before, and he had survived. So had humanity. This wasn't the first invasion Earth had faced, and it wouldn't be the last. But each time, the invaders learned the same hard truth: Earth wasn't a planet that could be easily conquered. Its people weren't so easily broken. With a quiet sigh, the sniper stood up, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. The mountains loomed behind him, silent witnesses to the battle that had unfolded. He had done his part today, but the war would continue. He walked away, blending into the landscape once more, just as he had before the battle. The aliens had come expecting to laugh at humanity's primitive weapons, to mock their outdated tactics. But they had left knowing that humanity wasn't just a collection of weapons or strategies. It was something much more dangerous. It was a force that could not be predicted or contained. It was a will that could not be broken. And in the end, that was what would always win.